Hi class, coming back for another video. Just an intro to week 4. This week you're going to be doing a lot bit more with typography, as well as talking about or reading and listening to videos on channel masking. First the thing I want to go over is some of the basics that you will read about in typography, but I'll try to give you a little extra um, insight on some things, especially like shortcuts and things to watch out for. So certainly when you know what the type tool is in Photoshop, and you want to make sure that anytime you are creating type, you want to draw a box. Once you draw a box with typography, it'll automatically create a new layer for you. And you don't have to name the layer because once you start typing into that box, you will notice that the words will automatically go into that layer. So no need to really, go in here and change the name because it will automatically change. So a couple things to remember is if you're trying to, if you want to move that element around, make sure you're on the pointer tool and you have that layer selected. And if you want to edit it, you double click, and then you can see the text box that I drew was here. Here is your font size. Here's your font. So my font is Gotham. It's bold. It's 80 point. It's on sharp, which is what you want to have it for, especially if it's for print. Here's the orientation. So your orientation could be left, center, or right. Your color. So right now it's white. If you just click on that, you can select any color and you'll see the color changing over here. If you know the hexadecimal color, when we do the web class, the web lesson, you can type in a hexadecimal color. Like I know 3 C's would be a gray color, and 3 9s would be a darker gray, and 3 3s will actually be the darkest gray that you can have in that color. So you can choose any which one. You could also use the pointer tool. So around, if you want to, while you're outside of this box, you can select and you can get that color as well. So if you are doing a design where you have a particular photo in there, and you want to, so let me bring up my photo. So let's say I have my photo. Let's say I have my photo in here. I'm enlarging this photo by using the text tool, the scale tool. So I'm going to drag that underneath. Let's say I had some text on here that I wanted to add to this photo. And so here's a shortcut that you can use. So Shift Apple or Shift Control and your arrow keys will automatically enlarge your font by 2 points. And you can notice in the font up here is changing every time I have a Shift Apple or Shift Control or Shift Command and the arrows left or right. It will make it so instead of having to go every single time and change the number here, sometimes you just want to go and enlarge it by 2 points. So I have my character tool up here. If you don't have this character tool, you just hit Command or Control T. It'll pull that up. It will be the same as over here, but I have a few more options in here. You may not see all the options. You can have all caps as an option. Here's your kerning, which is how you can adjust the letters inside of the spaces in between each letter form. You may not have to play with this too much, but it's certainly something to think about if you're doing things like logos. If you notice some logos, the kerning, which is the space here, is much tighter. Sometimes you want to spread your type out a little bit. It's okay to do that. Okay, you're seeing some of these treatments. The one you don't want to really mess with is you don't want to use this and you don't want to stretch the type like that. You don't want to do that. If you want an extended typeface, then try to go and get a font that has an extended typeface. So you can search, extended So as you see, it's changing. I have, I think, universe. It's not coming up. So if you want a condensed typeface or extended typeface, you want to choose that. Like this is an extended typeface, right? A condensed typeface, right? You don't want to use this key right here, which stretches the type. So you always keep it at 100%. I'll go back to Gotham. So you can type the font in there. Why it's not going? I don't think it's because of all classes. So I'm going to get Gotham. I'm at 119.9. If you do something like this and you can't see a font in there, you might have to extend this a little bit. So I think I typed over the words. Hit the Enter key. Then you can choose bold. So as I was saying, if you want to change the color of the font, you can double click, hit this little key, and then you can source a color and change that color to fit with the actual photo. So you can source that exactly just like you would source a different part of a photo. Okay, so if you want to match that color nicely, any part of the photo will help you match that. That's a pretty cool thing. The other thing you want to pay attention to is the Typekit. So if you have the subscription to Adobe CC, you can choose fonts from the Typekit. And if you add fonts from Typekit, it'll open up the Typekit and you can add in. You can sort things by Typekit, so only see the ones that Typekit has. Now, their Typekit also gives you print fonts as well as web fonts. So you have to make sure and choose the print font if you want to actually download it to your hard drive. Because if you choose a web font, it has to be saved on a server somewhere. So you wouldn't be able to download a web font. And the tutorial online kind of already shows you how to do that. I'm not going to go into the Typekit too much. But certainly one thing you want to remember is if you try to scale fonts and you want to scale them, you want to definitely hold down the shift key, and you can enlarge it, and it will enlarge pretty well. What you don't want to do is scale it without holding on the shift key, because what's going to happen is you're going to have these distortions in your font. You never want that to happen. Okay, typography should always be perfect, and it should never be distorted. So if you hold on the shift key, you can scale the font, and you'll notice that the typeface, the font size went up. Your leading over here is a space in between each line. So if I have photos and I have a second line in there and I want to edit that, make sure you make sure I have to apply that transformation. Make sure you double click, and if you double click, you get different handles, and you can bring the handles in. So if I want to center this, I can drag the handles. Now make sure you're on the type. The type is double clicked, and then I can change the center, and it'll perfectly center inside of this box. And say if I want to have a second line in there, let's say I want to put notice how when I typed it, it's really, really tight. That's kind of an interesting kind of, treatment. Let's say you want a little bit more space in between there. Notice that your font size is 146.95 and the leading is much smaller. So you want to at least be the same as this. So you can go like, 150. Didn't have mine selected. You can go to 150. And I'm going to close this up a little bit because I think it's a little bit too much in between. Hit enter, and I'm going to hit enter to make it. So notice here, I have I can't see my second line, so I could either backspace that, or if I couldn't see it, I could always open the box wider. Okay, the wider I open the box, the more lines I can get. So for my best photos, and if I want to move it, right, I'll move it like that. Okay, so certainly, scale, but make sure you're not scaling. Um, Make sure if you're editing your type, make sure that you double click on this, and then you're able to close out the box. The other thing you want to pay attention to is on your layers, you can add different effects to type. Now be careful with this because sometimes people can go crazy and have some really really bad effects. But if you kind of mouse over to this side of your layer, you double click on it, and you have the ability to add a drop shadow. Again, be careful using drop shadows too much. You might want to lighten them up. You can see a little bit of a change. It's hard to see with this color. So you can add an overlay actually on the type. And right now it's an overlay, but if you have it on your normal, you'll see the font actually change. So you still can double click on this and find another color that will overlay. So right now I'm in the layer style panel, but I can still pull a color, right? That's somewhere else in the document, right? Again, don't do too many effects, but just notice that you have a couple of effects here with your typography. You could also play with your opacity with your type. I have to say okay. You can drop the opacity down. So now I have a color overlay, but if I don't have the overlay on there, I can come to the layer over here, and I can make that opacity on the type. Right, so you can definitely play with your opacity right here. You can also put these different overlay effects on the type. Here, if I put an overlay, I may have to go up a little bit. So you can kind of create some sort of interesting, typographic treatments with Photoshop a lot more than you would in other programs. If you want to take off the effects, you can take off the effects and stuff like the drop shadow. You can kind of play around with these. These gives you a sort of a different, the hard light, the soft light will give you, some nice effects on here. So you can certainly play around with the opacity and certain effects with the typography. The other thing I wanted to mention was yes, another one is the shortcuts that you can, as I mentioned, if you have, if you don't want to remember the shortcut for character, you can certainly go to the window menu and use the pull down menu to get to the character. Certainly, if you have to create another set of type you want to create, make sure you're not selected on this, because if you select this layer and you go to type and you go to try to type, you're going to kind of bounce into this box. So make sure you go somewhere out here. If you're going to create another and then draw a box out here somewhere to create, a second. The other thing too is if to make white really easily, you can select some type and click on this box, and you can kind of hold the mouse and drag it all the way out to this end. It'll automatically go to white, which is 4 Fs, or you can select all the way, kind of drag your mouse all the way to the corner as far as it can go. It'll give you 6 zeros, and that's the darkest black that you can get. The same way you can go to other ends. But if you want to kind of get a quick white, you can just drag your mouse like that, or drag your mouse like this to get black. So I'm going to drag my mouse like that, and I'll say OK. And again, you can place your font on top of each other and sort of play around with different effects of how your text is. Like, I'll put this one back to normal. Right, you can kind of play around with how your font sort of interacts with each other. You can certainly play around with the leading. The shortcut for your leading is Option and the top arrow. That is a little tip of the day. So Option and down arrow will give you you can see a leading right here is changing. So up. So sometimes you want to kind of go and make it nice and tight. So a lot of effects in typography. And the second video intro for this week, I'll be showing you a little bit more about channel masking. So here, that's just a few tips on typography, and certainly have a lot of fun and play with it. Over and out.